Welcome everyone to the Moisky News for June the 1st, 2020. As you can tell from the title, we are going to be continuing the subject from Wednesday last week, which would concern the subject of CumGate, a trending hashtag that centered around Dominic Cummings and a 260-mile journey, although over 500 round trip, to take his children to his parents after his wife exhibited symptoms of COVID-19. Which many believed, and this is where the term, "is there one rule for them and one rule for us?" came from. Since the beginning of CumGate, the mainstream media have been utterly relentless in their pursuit of Dominic Cummings' head on a spike. To be honest, when one has full scope of this, the mainstream media have taken a rather large L, and are clearly desperate because of what has happened since. That includes when the truth finally came out, and they didn't exactly report on it. The first thing that happened was a petition on change.org to have Dominic Cummings fired. It has gotten since over 1 million signatures. Now, of course, no one from any other country would fake information to sign this now, would they? So this is total legitness, and one must take it super serially. As it is based on fake news, this further proves how stupid some are, so we can in fact discount it as nonsense. Although I do wonder if anyone's covered it. Ooh, not a good look for the mirror, I see. The second thing to crop up was that Emily Maitlis of the totally not biased BBC that we should all defund conjures up a rant on Newsnight.
Good evening. Dominic Cummings broke the rules. The country can see that, and it shocked the government cannot. The longer ministers and Prime Minister tell us he worked within them, the more angry the response to this scandal is likely to be. He was the man, remember, who always got the public mood, who tagged the lazy label of elite on those who disagreed. He should understand that public mood now, one of fury, contempt and anguish. He made those who struggle to keep to the rules feel like fools, and has allowed many more to assume they can now flout them. The Prime Minister knows all this, but despite the resignation of one minister, growing unease from his backbenchers, a dramatic early warning from the polls, and a deep national disquiet, Boris Johnson has chosen to ignore it.
Taking shots at Boris and Cummings, I did in fact mention this in the last video on this subject. It is also predicated on fake news, where she flays the Conservatives for this one rule for them, another for us bollocks. This leads to 40,000 plus people complaining to the BBC about their own bias. Because they are publicly funded, they have to agree to certain rules. The BBC has since put out a statement confirming that her comments did in fact breach impartiality laws. Can we defund the BBC now, please? I'm not a fan of them at the best of times, but when even they are peddling the same fake news, one does have to wonder, what's the point anyway? You haven't put out an original show since the origin of Doctor Who. There are sources that have since claimed that Dominic Cummings is going to resign by the end of the year. Not now. With him leaving, or alleged to be leaving, frontline politics at the end of the year once we leave the EU. Now, of course, if the Barnier bill passes, that'll be extended by a further 2 years. But it's not going to pass. So this possible rumour may or may not come to pass at all. Because as we all know, senior aides are only good at giving advice for one thing. Boris Johnson has also given Dominic Cummings a last chance after the media firestorm of CumGate, which to me would have been better had he been sent to a penal legion. Penal legion? I want him to become a last chancer, okay? Part of me had thought the reason Boris had done this was to save face and not because he actually meant it, or because he wanted the attention off Dominic Cummings and back onto the government's business of tackling COVID-19. The government has since kinda confirmed that's the way they're going by further relaxing the rules, which to me seemed like it might be also part of a distraction, but you'd have to have a tinfoil hat for that to have any concrete validity. Moving on from that, there are 2 witnesses in this, one of whom saw Dominic Cummings drive all the way up to wherever it was he went. I can't remember the name. Interestingly though, that same person drove 250 miles to collect his daughter. Okay. The final one though is Tim Matthews, who had claimed to have spotted Dominic Cummings in Durham 6 days after he had returned to London. Right. Well, Tim Matthews has since admitted that he did in fact doctor the images of a runner app as a joke. Part of me thinks you may have spoken up a bit too late on this, don't you think, Tim Matthews? The overarching point and claim with all of this, because of what Dominic Cummings has done when it came to Brexit, which is why people think he'll resign once we leave, is that this all proves the mainstream media haven't accepted that the United Kingdom is leaving the EU, and their way of dealing with it is to sensationalise and outright lie by using misused quotes and people who have faked it, but not upon getting the full picture and all the facts, reporting fairly on that, which is a damning statement for the current state of mainstream media in this country. People thought when Boris came into power that he was going to ignore them or that he was on purpose. Part of me thinks he was doing it because he knew they were going to start lying at the very first opportunity, and this proves it, which is absolutely shambolic and disgraceful. You are, as journalists, held to a standard, but that standard hasn't been held for years, in favour of reporting absolute nonsense and lies. Let's not forget here you took a quote from someone hypothesising what could happen and running with it as a title to an article to try and smear Dominic Cummings. That's the BBC, by the way, totally not being impartial. With this, I'm very much interested to know what you think, so please do let me know in the comments down below. As a final thing, I am streaming Euro Truck on Omegon Plays. If you're interested in joining for some casual chit-chat, swing by. But also, if you'd like to support this channel, I recently updated my Teespring. If you'd like to support this channel, either via Patreon or Teespring, links are both in the description down below.